I'm Gladys Lai, and I work at Vogue as one of the content editors. Over the past few years, the world has seen a few seismic events which have shaped the way we engage with social media. From COVID to bushfires and Black Lives Matter, the internet has been a place where digital activism has shaped the physical world around us. Here, I'm joined with three brilliant panelists to talk about this phenomenon and where we go to next. Please welcome Clothing the Gap Sienna Cartulo, Welcome Merchants Marjorie Chavez, and Cripple Media's Madison Lawson. Now, Madison, I'd love to start with you. Firstly, thank you for joining us online all the way from Missouri. How do you think the pandemic and the prevalence of social media as a primary form of sharing information has changed the way we think about social issues and raising awareness?
I think the pandemic was really the first time that everyone was kind of forced to sit still and listen. And I saw a lot of emerging content creators of all different types of minorities, finally getting a platform and finally being able to advocate for things and educate people on things that it's not that they weren't doing that before, but it's just people didn't really make the time to listen. And I think that once everybody kind of, really had to sit still, it really changed the way that, they viewed a lot of different types of people because they were intaking all this information. And I definitely think that technology is kind of what held us all together when we really couldn't be together. And I think that was kind of the uniting thing amongst this, terrible situation. But I think that was probably something positive that came out of that.
Absolutely. And just on that note, Madison, how do you think the landscape has changed even in your lifetime?
I definitely feel like social media has really been a way to connect. I remember as a little kid, I was the only person in a wheelchair at my school. And so a lot of times, when you go through something and you don't see other people dealing with the same thing, it's easy to feel very isolated and alone. And when I was in middle school, I started posting about my experiences on Instagram on my account, Wheelchair Barbie. And it was really the first time that I was given the opportunity to control the lens at which I was looked through. Because people sometimes, take one look at you and you have a visible disability and they kind of have all these assumptions. But the internet really gave me a chance to kind of re-educate people and tell the real story. And it kind of impacted every life choice afterwards because, once I found my people, once I found that I wasn't alone, it changed my whole world. And all it took was just meeting a couple people, and I knew that this is like what I wanted to do. And it's such a magical thing to get to meet people that share that experience, especially when a lot of your experiences feel so isolating. And so I remember during that time it was like, people are like, don't talk to strangers on the internet, but honestly, talking to strangers on the internet was the best decision that I ever made. And I think it's really cool. Like, my biggest advice to parents of disabled kids is let them get on the internet because, I think they find once you see that somebody else is dealing with the same thing, it makes it easier to face it every single day.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Madison. Now, just to you, Sienna. So Clothing the Gaps is a brand which has gained a lot of attention on social media, especially Instagram. And did you have any challenges growing the brand using this platform?
Yeah, good question. We started Clothing the Gaps on Instagram was late 2018, early 2019. So how even the way Instagram looks now, like you look at Instagram in 2018 and there's been so many more features that have been added to it. But one feature that I think was a challenge for us was you had to have 10,000 followers to have a swipe up. And for those that don't know what Clothing the Gaps is, it's an Aboriginal social enterprise, and we're merch with a message, and where we make clothes to start conversations. So we want people to go out in the world and have these conversations. And to do that, we needed to equip them with, educational resources, opinion pieces, and actually with the information that they needed to have to hold a conversation. And it was really hard when we didn't have that swipe up, where we couldn't send people to, to those resources, to opinion pieces. And another thing that we do is we're very, as much as we like people wearing clothes, we want people to take action and to go that step further. So whether it was signing petitions and, following other accounts and, reading and learning about other things, and the swipe up, not having that swipe up was actually really difficult to send people them. I remember when we got our first 10,000 followers, we popped a bottle of champagne. We're like, yes, work's going to become so much easier now. So that was probably our main challenge. And I think another challenge was when we did start Clothing the Gaps, is how do we still say authentic and genuine and relatable to us? And I think that's the hard thing with going into technology is, we want people to really know who we are, and we want to stay relatable. So just making sure that comes across on socials as well was really important for us. But they were probably our main two challenges that we had.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sienna. Now, Marjorie, Welcome Merchant is such a brilliant platform for introducing the world to amazing refugee-run businesses. How did you get started, and how has the concept of the social enterprise shifted since you first began to now?
Good morning, everyone. So how did I get started? Through online buying? I'm pretty sure that's how I discovered Clothing the Gaps too. Before Welcome Merchant, I bought a shirt that I came across your Instagram account. So I started Welcome Merchant in March 2020 as an Instagram account. That was my main goal. I just thought that there was a gap. I kept buying products and clothing whatsoever from Black business, for example, and spend with them. So spend with them, for those that don't know it, it started as an Instagram account to promote businesses that were impacted by the bushfires in around late 2019, early 2020. And then I just thought, wait a minute, something's missing here. I had been working with refugees and people seeking asylum since 2011. So I already knew of some of the businesses that were around. And then I just thought, well, maybe we should start an account promoting their businesses as well. So that's basically the main origin. And then later on in that year, I joined a business accelerator program. So from there, that helped me go from an Instagram account to a social enterprise. So yeah, really, there was a missing gap. There was all these amazing refugee-owned businesses, but they didn't have one single platform that people can go to.
Thank you so much, Marjorie. Now, Sienna, I'd like to come back to you. For young people watching this now, aspiring to start their own business and using digital marketing to get their business out there, what's your advice?
My advice, I think what I said before about, your authenticity and staying genuine, I think that is really important, and what we are really proud to, at Clothing the Gaps, we're value-based, and we will always stay values-based. If it doesn't align with our values, should we do it? I think especially after, Black Lives Matter, and that really took off in 2020. There's a lot of businesses coming and jumping on, on our platform and saying, let's do a collab, let's do this together. And at the start it was flattering because we were still really tiny. But what was really important to us was, does this align with us? Is this authentic to us? Is this going to help our brand grow in the way that we want it to grow? So I think my advice is just stay genuine and authentic and true to yourself. If it doesn't feel right, there's probably something wrong with it. And I think there's no trouble in starting small and building the infrastructure to actually grow. People see our clothes out in the world and say, hey, I want to start a clothing business. And I don't think they realize the work that goes into it is we've got 2 factories now to hold our stock. We've had to build a really good relationship with our manufacturer. We built make locally here, especially during COVID, and how that's, was really tough. And yeah, so we've got over 30 staff members now. So I think starting small is also a smart move, and building the infrastructure to grow.
And Marjorie, I'd love your thoughts on this too, especially making the jump from Instagram promotion to hosting physical real world events.
That's a really good point that Sienna made, like starting small, because I think a lot of people think that, okay, they need to find investors right away, and they may be jumping right into the deep end and then like, have to swim across it if they can make it or not. But my advice is, look, I mean, I'm very new to the game. It's only been a year and a half since, Welcome Merchant became a social enterprise. So I don't know if I'm like the most, I'm the expert in this subject matter, but my advice is to find like a mentor or like join a business accelerator program like I did. That really helped me like develop my initial crazy ideas to something more concrete and sustainable. So jumping from Instagram promotion to real life world events, that's just go with your gut feeling, basically. So I did. It helped that the fact that I had some experience in running events in the past, that's also really helped me. And then I also would advise for aspiring business entrepreneurs out there to never like sell themselves short. I certainly did that a few times, and maybe I probably still continue to do that as a woman as well, as a woman of color even, but don't ever sell yourself short.
Thank you so much, Marjorie. Also, just a reminder to our audience that you can also ask any of our panelists any questions you may have by entering your question in the box to the right side of your screen. And Marjorie, just coming back to you, given you work with so many new businesses, what sort of advice do you give them, especially with women-led teams or founders, of how to have a successful small business?
Again, I'm not an expert in this yet, but I really want to stress the importance of having a mentor. So I've been really lucky. I have a marketing mentor because I don't have any co-founders, right? So just asking people for advice when you can. Use your own networks and maximize your networks. Like I've been doing that ever since. If you need a favor, don't hesitate to ask. You can't do it on your own, and it's really important to take some time for yourself as well. So I know it can be really crazy. Like I was holding down a full-time job and trying to grow Welcome Merchant. So I made the big jump to quitting that full-time job to taking on another part-time job anyway. Like you do have to make a sacrifice at some point, but if it's worth the risk anyway.
Now, Sienna, digital activism comes with so many benefits as it connects us globally and allows communities to mobilize around important issues, but it also excludes those in areas with limited or censored internet access or low levels of digital literacy. How can businesses and organizations tackle this?
We're still pretty new and definitely not the best at this yet. I think what's really important though is diversifying the way you market yourself and put out educational resources. We are very Instagram based at the moment, and very technology based. We're a Victorian brand, but we're selling clothes nationally and internationally, and these conversations are conversations and causes and issues are national issues, not just Victorian things. So I think online has allowed us to have those conversations and represent the national audience. But I think a way of diversifying that's not technology is there is an amazing small newspaper called the Courier Mail. I know that's in Victoria, New South Wales, and it's a monthly newspaper led by an Aboriginal organisation with many Aboriginal people part of that. So we often, put ads out into there, do articles and opinion pieces in there. So we're really trying to go still, newspapers still exist. So remembering people that don't have access to technology. And I think another one is, emails, like email newsletters that people still receive. We're really growing our audiences on our email newsletters, because we're mainly on Instagram now, but who knows how long Instagram's going to be, the main platform. And I think I have to be mindful that I have to start learning more about TikTok and, all these other new platforms that really hurt me, but they're the newest thing. So I think, continuing, we're not the best at it and we have to get better at it, but just making sure that, there's lots of different avenues that we have to use to elevate our voices and raise awareness.
Absolutely. Now, Madison, I'd just like to come back to you for a second. Visibility is such an essential factor in promoting change. How can brands help promote diversity and inclusion for the disabled community?
I think the biggest ways that brands can go about doing this is making it further than just including us in the photos. When you create products that are specifically targeted towards the disabled community, make sure that you include disabled people in the design process, in the marketing process, and kind of just include us at every single level in order to truly make it not just a moment, but something that is sustainable and something that will last. And I think that a lot of times just asking us for advice on what would work best for you, and just making sure that those products are accessible, not only physically to use, but also something that people with all kinds of disabilities can access, whether that's, modifying your website so that, people with different kinds of disabilities can use those things. And I think just involving us on every single level, not just in the photos, not making it just a moment. And I actually had the pleasure of working with Olay a few months ago, and they did such a great job at this. I mean, they asked for our advice on every single step, and they really wanted to make it not just a moment of, look at us, we did this great thing, but they actually didn't patent the product that we created because they want other brands to follow suit. And they're like, accessibility, you can't patent that because we want other people to see this. Because I think a lot of times the biggest struggle I think companies have is just lack of awareness. But once they see that, they should follow suit. And once you're aware and you choose not to do it, then it's a choice. But I really liked that, when I found out that they didn't patent the product, that just showed me that, in all aspects of the project, their heart was in the right place. And I had a lot of respect for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And now, Sienna, performative activism and tokenism are problematic, but sometimes there can be a sense of pressure to share or promote an issue we don't know much about. What are your tips to those in the audience on navigating this?
I love and hate this question. Performative activism is real, tokenism is real. What Maddie said before, I second everything that you said, is it has to go beyond just the photos. When we talk about activism and in my space, we're trying to dismantle a system that wasn't built for us. In terms of, what Edwina said before about, making sure more women are presented in the workplace. That's what we're doing for people of colour and Aboriginal people specifically, and that takes ongoing work, and it has to start internally. And Maddie, I really liked how you started off the conversation saying, COVID really forced people to sit still and listen. And I think that's what brands and businesses actually need to do. And instead of feeling the pressure oh my God, this is trending right now, we have to talk about this because everyone else is talking about this, just sit and listen and, look to the brands like Black-owned brands and other, minority brands that are led by the people that you're trying to now target, and just listen and learn from them. And then internally work on, what are the things that we have to do to represent these people, to raise more awareness and make it more inclusive and more diverse. And it starts internally. And once you nail the internal side, then you can externally start talking about this, and you can externally start, I guess, raising more awareness about this, having these conversations. And it doesn't stop at the talent. And when people talk about inclusivity and diversity and activism, it doesn't stop at, putting a Black model in their campaign. And, that's not what inclusivity and diversity is. And that's not what activism is. It actually has to be embedded in the business and in the brand. And we can see through that now, especially there are so many amazing brands doing it right. There are so many small businesses coming up and doing it right, that when a brand is just doing it for the trend, I think we can see through that now. So my advice is, it's not a race. It's an ongoing journey that we're doing. So if you want to do it right, don't rush it. Take your time in actually building the infrastructure for it. And when you're ready for it, you'll be able to do a really good job. But sit still and listen. What Maddie said before, I think that's what brands and businesses need to do.
Absolutely. And that leads into my next question, which I'll direct to Marjorie, which is, how can Vogue readers and this audience help promote the businesses that you support? What can we do in our everyday lives to make sure that we're lifting up refugee-owned brands and businesses?
Thanks, Gladys. So we always say that anti-racism work is an everyday practice. We featured over 110 refugee-powered businesses, not just in our Instagram channels, but we actually have the online directory on welcomemerchant.com. So we want for people to think, they want to go to the restaurant, jump onto our directory, have a look there. We also have an amazing range of designers. There's like 3 Afghan Australian designers on there. We have Palestinian Jordanian designers. We have West African designers as well. And then all kinds of services like trades whatsoever. Like they offer, and they can do it all. So that's what we want people to remember. So we have Refugee Week coming up, in case of, for those who are not aware. And it's I have a love and hate relationship towards Refugee Week, because it becomes one of those all of a sudden we're so busy, we're getting contacted by all these companies, like they want to do something for Refugee Week. As soon as we give them a quote, this has happened like a few times, like in the past month. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that wasn't our budget. That's not that. It's just really frustrating, and you just think, great. That's not really, it just shows that not much has changed since, 2 years time. Like, people still kind of jump onto this whole bandwagon and think they're doing the right thing, but they're really not. So we want for people to start viewing refugee-owned businesses as like the same as your everyday business. They're just as talented. They're very resilient. They offer amazing products and services, and really, it's time to step out of your comfort zone.
Now, finally, and this is for everyone, do you have any advice for individuals who want to move beyond digital activism and make real, tangible change?
I think stay genuine, and ask why you're doing this. Is it because you've actually you care? And if it is, it's going to take ongoing work. It's not, I'm going to do this for example, I'm just going to buy a Clothing the Gaps t-shirt. And I've done my bit. I'm an ally now. It takes ongoing work. So connect with people who are grassroots doing the work, and give them a follow, elevate them, and just listen to them. And I think that's things that need to be done.
Thank you so much. And Marjorie and Madison, do you have anything to add to that?
I think just, like she had said, staying true to yourself, staying genuine, and also just elevating people's voices, in the disabled community. I've had a lot of, I've met so many people from all around the world, and, I think just reminding yourself that you're not alone in your struggles, and that when you do fight for something, you're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for, so many other people that will experience the same thing. So I also think just like, I heard this really cool quote, actually on TikTok, ironically, but basically it said, if you feel like, the world, you weren't made for this world, it's because you were put here to create a new one. And so I think that just thinking that way, and reminding yourself that every single little fight, every single little, every time you push that needle of inclusion forward, even in what feels like small ways, it's big. It's a big deal. And just remember that, even when it feels lonely, there's other people that have gone through the exact same thing and that are going through the exact same thing. And you're never alone. Just don't take no for an answer. People will look at you and doubt you, but let them. You don't exist to prove them wrong. You exist to do exactly what you want to do. So, I think just don't take no for an answer. If you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen. So.
Now, I can see we have a few audience questions coming through. We have one here for Sienna. What was it like jumping from your own business to hiring people? I bet that was daunting. How did you navigate through that?
So Clothing the Gaps isn't my business. There's two co-founders, Laura Thompson, who's Gunditjmara woman, and Sarah Sheridan, who's non-Aboriginal. I was just very, very lucky enough to be working with them from the very beginning. So I've helped grow Clothing the Gaps to, what it is now, which is very exciting. It was like my little baby project that's gotten very, very big. And I think we've just always stayed values-based. And when we have done the hiring, we really look at people's values and how they align to the business. We're 86% Aboriginal employment, which is awesome. That's not many workplaces that are like that. And we hire Aboriginal people because we think they're the best people to have these conversations. It's come quite naturally to us hiring and growing and being able to have more mob in spaces and safe Black spaces.
And this one is for everyone. Have any of you dealt with any discrimination, whether it be race or disability, and how did you navigate through this?
I think the great thing about socials is like block and delete comments when you get that sort of stuff. Instagram and Facebook, and this is one of the reasons why we didn't come on TikTok until, and I think TikTok's changed recently, but if someone's putting something nasty out there or don't really agree with you, or flat out like racist and horrible, then it's just a quick delete and block and we don't ever have to see you again.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. Marjorie, did you have something to add to that?
I was just going to say, like, when I started Instagram, my concern is, my main concern is not for me, it's for the merchants that we promote. So I was worried that people would be leaving, like, rude comments in Instagram. But so far, we've been pretty lucky. I think we only really attract like some haters when I post anything political. So if I go on a rant or something about the current state, that's when I start getting all the non-followers going, oh, blah, blah, blah. So we've limited our comments on Instagram. This is how you can block them up. Go ahead, Maddie, sorry.
Oh, you're good. I think kind of to go along with what she had said, the block button and the delete button are magical when you need them. But for the most part, I kind of, living as a visibly physically disabled woman, I've gotten comments my whole life just from like strangers generally, where they just kind of, they set the bar of what they believe that I'm capable of doing on the ground. And they're kind of, I'll get complimented for going to the store and being out in public. But then whenever they find out, like, I went to college and I write for all these different fashion publications, and they're just very shocked. And I think just existing genuinely and existing, doing everything you want to do and just kind of not letting those negative words affect you I think just showing up every day, especially in places where historically people that look like you have never existed before. I think that's honestly the best way and the biggest way to kind of combat those kinds of attitudes and opinions, because it might take a while for people to change, but little by little, showing up in those places, you do make a difference every day. Just being true to yourself and, making it happen despite what the haters think you're capable of doing. So
that's all we have time for today. I want to thank all of our inspiring panelists for this robust and informative panel. Make sure you stay updated on what's happening with Clothing the Gaps, Welcome Merchant, and Cripple by following them on social media. I'd now like to welcome the Oz's Elise Popplewell to introduce our next speaker.